think that water for household use and consumption is big, but also water when you're trying to attract these big food processing plants, the companies like the McCain's, you need to have a massive supply.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home. Well, joining me on the porch today is someone from Cypress County, the first person from Cypress County to guest on Bring Back the Porch in this election campaign, Ward 4 Councillor candidate Robin Kurpjuweit. Welcome, Robin.
Thanks, Brian. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you here, too, because for a lot of us city folks, you know, outside the country, they have their own little thing, and we don't sometimes pay enough attention to them. So it's good to have you here to tell us what's happening in Cypress County.
Well, it's nice to be had.
Take that two ways, I think. Cypress County, you operate on a different electoral system than Medicine Hat. Medicine Hat is 8 councillors from anywhere in the city. Cypress County runs on a ward system, and you are in Ward 4, which represents a small part of a big area.
That's right. Yeah, I represent Ward 4. I'm just finishing up my second term now, so finishing 8 years. And Cypress County, we operate on 9 wards. The Reeve is chosen out of those 9. And there's definitely some differences in that, some good, some bad. But a pretty big difference between the city and the county, for sure.
We did see during the last term for the council a problem in Irvine, where people in Irvine were not appreciative of a new library that was going to go where a park was in their town. But because they were only one ward out of 9, they were not able to convince the others. Is that a problem of the ward system?
I think that definitely having different wards and you're elected by your ward, and then you're making decisions for the county in a whole. That does create some challenges for sure, and in that situation, I think that may have been one of them. There was definitely vocal groups for it and against it, and at the end of the day, when council made a decision on it, it was kind of seen as something that you don't go and visit because it wasn't a ward decision; it was more of a county decision. But I think that we still, as council, need to be open to hearing the response and the reactions of people. And ultimately, we're elected to make the decisions that we can, that are the best decisions that we're able to. But I think it's important for everybody on council to be willing to listen to the voice of the people, because to me, that's the ultimate litmus test on whether it's what's acceptable and what's not. And that was one example of it. But even, in my ward, I've been pushing hard for water projects over the last few years, and it's difficult because you might have a $15 million or a $20 million water project that would be really great in one, but then another ward may want it in theirs, and there's only so many grants and funding dollars to go around, so it definitely complicates how you divvy that up, and it's not tribalism, but you definitely are it's a little bit more of a tribal approach because one ward wants something, the other ward wants it, and then do you support that because you want it before they want it? There's some challenges that come with that makes it tough.
Makes it more like a horse trader. If I get this, then I want that, and you get this, and you have to be more of a politician.
Yeah, and I think that honestly, I think that's sometimes some of the backroom dealings that we try to avoid as well, because at the end of the day, it's not about horse trading. It's about what you make as a decision for the county that's the best decision as possible. And I know, like in the situation I talked about with the water lines and water projects, my response has always been to the other councillors that have maybe not supported that ask, has been, if you have a project, bring it forward, I'll support it. We want to see water. We want to see projects. We want to see investment. We want to see those things happening. I think that we need to start thinking bigger, though. If we are simply looking at projects based on our ward and a ward to ward type of a system, I think that really we sell ourselves short on that. If we want the southeastern portion of Alberta to become a real ag producing area, Ward 4 is not the only one that needs raw water. We need to have a massive project that we can take to the provincial and federal governments that we can help sell, because the one-off projects, and even within the wards, this water project that we're pushing for, it doesn't necessarily apply to the entire Ward 4. Now it's applying to subdivisions that may affect 15 to 100 people. What about the other 800 people in that area? And so if we can start thinking a little bit bigger and then elevate our voice at the provincial and federal level and advocate as a community, as a county, I think we can start seeing some of these things, because we've failed to do that in the last few years. What we have done is a really good job of securing our financial future. Like, we are in a really good place. We still have more work to do, but we've accomplished that. Now it's time to start dreaming big.
Is water the biggest issue facing the entire Cypress County? I know Walsh has worked a long time to finally get their water, I guess, to where it is today. 7 persons, I think, they have a pipeline now that comes from Medicine Hat.
Yeah.
So water is life.
The water is life. And, any of our hamlets, they have potable water. So, Walsh, Irvin, Dunmore, 7 persons, Desert Bloom. It's the outlying areas from that. There's plenty of water co-ops that are in existence right now. Some of them cover, massive areas, like the West Side Water Co-op is from 7 persons all the way to Medicine Hat north on the Wholesome Road. And they do a really great job of providing that potable water, but it's there's limitations to that as well. And then once the co-ops are in, it's hard to get into them. So as you're growing and developing, it's not like you're growing and developing and still able to access and add more and more water capacity. So that can be a challenge. And then setting up new co-ops has become really the big issue. When I was first elected in 2017, we met with the government in power, and they told us straight up that funding small rural co-ops is something of the past. And so we started thinking bigger and looking at regional water projects and things that we could do that way. But I think that water for household use and consumption is big. But also water when you're trying to attract these big food processing plants, the companies like the McCain's, you need to have a massive supply. And so, 8 years ago, we started talking about how do we ensure that we have water security. And so we ended up buying a lot. We have enough water rights for the next 40, 50 years, in order to grow and develop into. But then the infrastructure is where the cost comes. And so we know we have the ability to do it. We can't be turned down right now because of the lack of licensing. But it's, when you're getting into some of these projects, you're talking 40 to 100 to 200 million dollars, and that needs to be a well thought out project.
You mentioned these like processing companies that you would tie in with the agriculture that is in Cypress County. Are there any out there that are maybe looking at Cypress County, but they're being held back because of lack of water?
I would say that there's definitely a lot of companies that are out there that are kicking tires, and they're always looking. I believe that the twinning of Highway 3 is going to help with some of that as well. The access to the water, and then the infrastructure that needs to be in the ground. We've had a lot of discussion on whether development looks like developer pay, where they come in and they want to buy a piece of land, and that ends up turning into a $5 or $6 million water line that they're on the hook for. Or as a county, do we look at it and say, we're going to identify this area and we're going to put in the infrastructure, and they might have to put the last 200 meters in, but we are going to have a turnkey development where these guys can come in and they know that we're ready for them. I think that's something that I'm a little bit more in line with, is identifying the kind of companies that we want to bring in, recognizing what they're going to need, making sure that the infrastructure and the services are there, and then go get them, versus just expecting them to come and sniff us out.
Is there a tug of war between the water use for people and the water use for agriculture, and particularly irrigation?
Yes and no. So I think that when it comes down to raw water, you've got irrigation, you have private consumption. The potable water is more what the individual, the private homeowners are looking for. They don't want to be relying on wells or hauling in water as much. Although my wife and I, we haul our water in, and it's efficient. It works well. But when you're watering the lawn and you're trying to water trees and you're trying to keep your yard green, and we're in grass fire season right now. We know exactly what that looks like. So I understand the desire to have that. The potable water is a harder sell for sure. It's 10 times the price of putting in raw water systems. The nice thing with the raw water ideas, and the one that's in my ward that we've been kind of pushing and trying to get some traction with, is that it's actually the draw and the attraction and the investment in it is for agriculture. And then once you have that line that's in there for ag purposes and you're able to access some of those grant dollars, now you're able to do spin-offs for some of these more rural communities with raw water. And if they want to treat the water that comes to them, that's up to them. But we could potentially be supplying some of these big factories with raw water. And again, like I said, raw water that's not treated is 10 cents on the dollar to what potable is. So that goes a lot further as well. So, but it comes down to a lot of these projects are 100 million plus projects, and we need to see the economic spin-off. I think that in the county we have oil and gas has been our bread and butter for a long time. And, we talk a lot about diversifying our tax base. And, that's hard to do when you're talking about, one storefront at a time. We need to be bringing in a lot of these big ag food, ag producing companies, these added value services where they're spin-offs. And it not only allows our producers to be more efficient and more profitable, but then the spin-offs are also not just, a 600 square foot storefront where you need more density, and that's not what our strong point is. We have a lot of land. And if somebody's going to come in and put in 100 million or a million square foot storage facility or potato barn or something like that, the county's a perfect place for that. You're not likely going to see that set up within city limits. Our tax rates are different. The service expectation is different, and that's the right place for it.
You mentioned fire season, and water is a key component of protecting people from fire, and I think you saw that a couple of weeks ago out in Cypress County. I know I saw some of the pictures that you posted. Fire protection in Cypress County, I think, has come a long way in the last 10 years.
It has come a long way, and we've been fortunate. We've got a good team that's out there right now, and it's continuing to evolve and grow. I was lucky enough to see how our fire department has responded to a lot of those things, and the training and their capacity to respond is fantastic. I think that we also rely huge on our community, the Haudenosaunee colonies, neighboring partners. I know we've received a lot of support from over the border in Saskatchewan as well, and so moving forward, we just need to continue to do what we do best. We're well trained, we're well established, and continue to develop and grow those relationships so that we can provide the services that we want to. It's tough in rural municipalities because you're relying on volunteerism, and we have a more structured system right now with our paid on call stuff, but it is still heavily reliant on members in those communities being involved, taking the training, and working with the system.
You mentioned, too, how the system is different in Cypress County, where you have the councillors, and then the councillors elect a reeve, which is sort of a counterpart of a mayor in the city. Good and bad in that system?
Yeah, you know what? I've been involved in the county now for 8 years, and I'd really love to see the reeve as an elected at large position. And when I got on, you come in and you're gung ho. You make a bunch of promises. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stand up for this, and I'm going to fight for this. But you need 4 other votes in order to get that done, and that's a big part of it. And this year it's the first year that we're going to be having a public forum tomorrow night. We're airing this on Wednesday right now, but on Thursday night we're doing our first debate. That's going to be great. It'll be one of the first times in my life that the county candidates are going to get together in one room and talk about what they want to see. And I think that's important because for the voters to understand what the collective consciousness or that collective thought of that group of individuals is helpful. It's hard, though, for a voter to send a mandate to a municipality when you're voting for your one person and then that group elects one in order to lead that group and be the voice of council. And I know others on council have talked about this in the past. I'm not unique in this thought, but I do think that, in 4 years or 8 years from now, it would be nice to see a system where the reeve was elected by the county residents as a whole. So you vote in your your specific ward, and then every ward also elects who they feel would be the reeve, and that person then is able to project more of a vision on where's the county going, how do we see ourselves getting there, and then they can bring the rest of council under and truly lead that way. And it's a leadership position that's been stamped by the electorate of the county with their own mandate then.
We have, in our discussions with some of the candidates and some of the current councillors in Medicine Hat, they've been talking about how the role of a council has changed over the last couple of years because of the Municipal Government Act and changes that the province has made. Has that impacted the operations in Cypress County? Do you feel maybe like you're being handcuffed a little bit?
Yeah, I think that the MGA obviously is our guiding document. It's what helps us to establish what our authority is. Ultimately, sometimes you have councils that have people that are super qualified to be on council, and then sometimes you have people that aren't super qualified. And the MGA makes sure that there's a structure and a hierarchy in place where, 20 years ago, council ran the county. That was the mindset. A CAO at the time was more of a they executed the wishes of council, and council was in the weeds. We were very much involved in operations and day-to-day. That's not as much the way that things work now. We have, I know we've heard about it in the city as well. We have our one employee, and that employee is there in order to deliver on the policies and the strategy and the strategic vision that council is to set forward for them, and they have to deliver on it. And so that role is more of a, all right, council, where do you want to go? How do you want to get there? And then we need to provide them the budget in order to make it happen. And so it's a fine line, that balance, and having somebody in that position that's good is very important as well. And we're super lucky in Cypress County right now. We've got Al Hogan, who's a very senior individual when it comes down to CAOing in the province of Alberta. He's been around. He's got great experience, and I think that we're very lucky to have him right now.
The cooperation between the City of Medicine Hat and Cypress County and the town of Redcliffe has also been a discussion in this campaign, particularly with a view towards economic development.
Yeah.
What is the relationship from your point of view between the county and the city right now?
I think everybody gets along good. And I have a little smirk on my face because I'm going to throw this comment out as a bit more of a challenge for the councils moving forward, because we talk about regionalization and working together as a region, but it's very difficult to get past that self-protectionism. I've worked in development and in construction in Medicine Hat now for almost 20 years, and Cypress County is not going to be successful at the cost of Medicine Hat, and the town is not going to be successful if the city is suffering, or vice versa. We need to change the way that we measure our success, and our success needs to be measured as a region. We absolutely need to continue the work that the Intermunicipal Committee has been doing, and I think that we need to tie the councils in a lot more so that we are doing more of like this economic development as a region is great, but what does our strat plan as a region look like? What does our regional recreation plan look like? If the city's talking about this recreation center now in the south, this should be a part of a regional conversation. I think that regional water, regional waste, regional rec, regional economic development, regional tourism, those are all conversations that should be happening as a joint body.
One of the things that Cypress County, I think, was instrumental in was convincing the province to maybe pull back on renewable energy, particularly windmills. I know a lot of people out in Cypress County don't like having those big wind turbines blocking their view, using up agricultural land, solar power, etc. How do we balance between the need for the power and the aesthetics of people who are living and using the land to feed us?
Yeah, and I think also recognizing, you've got landowner rights as one part of the conversation, because you have a farmer who comes in and says, I got a quarter section of dry land that's not making me a lot of money, or I can put, a quarter section of solar panels. In one sentence, they want landowner rights, and in another sentence, the neighbors are saying, well, no, they can't have landowner rights. We don't want this. In my ward, there's definitely a lot of wind turbines. I'm right up on the ridge. I'm 4 miles from Little Plume Church, and there's probably 70 towers around me right now. And I'm not a big fan of the view of them or the look of them, but I do think that at the end of the day, what the county's been able to do is through our land use planning and with our municipal development plan, set some requirements and some restrictions up on setbacks and to identify areas where it may be more appropriate, less appropriate. It is difficult because when we buy in an area that has pristine views, we don't own our view. Sometimes I think we take that for granted, and the reality is that the view may not be great in certain spots, but I have as many neighbors in my area that benefit to the tune of millions of dollars in my ward. So as many people that benefit from it as that don't. And so it's a complicated situation, and I think that the AUC has a lot of oversight. They have the authority. At the end of the day, we can try to reject something, and they come in and they say, no, this is going to happen. This falls under our autonomy. So it's identifying where it's a good place and where it's appropriate and where it's not, and then just again coming back to the people, listening to those, and trying your best to balance that.
Well, you mentioned earlier the finances of Cypress County. Are you in good shape?
We're in great shape. Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's still more to be done. The province has definitely shifted, and there's the big word in the last couple of years has been downloading, and so we have been, I think, prudent in our decision making and our strategizing. About 5 years ago, we made a very intentional decision to position ourselves, at the top of the bottom 20% in tax rates in the province. So if you look at the provincial average, we fit right at the top of the bottom 20%. We wanted to be able to balance efficiency and value. And we're still one of the most affordable places to live and to do business and work. But at the same time, we're at a tax rate where we're able to still fund a lot of these reserves that we need to have funded. I know at one point we were talking about bridges, culverts, roads, and we were underfunded in the neighborhood of $150 million over the next 20 years. So we're working our way, and we have a model in place right now that will get us there. And again, this year, like we passed a budget at the last meeting that will most likely include 0 tax increases again this year, which would be 2 years in a row. And so we want to have that stability. And but at the same time, when you're in that bottom 20% and we talk about expanding our tax base, if oil and gas comes down, that's 80% plus 80% of our revenue. If we start losing even 30% of that over the next 15, 20 years, we need a lot of diversification. We need a lot of growth, and there's still going to need to be some changes in the way that tax model looks.
Anything specific other than your water project in Ward 4 that you'll be looking forward to in the next 4 years?
You know what? I think that continuing to push for the water and continuing to push for opportunities for increased ag. My area is we got a lot of dry land, and there's a lot of guys that would love to see some irrigation. But there's also a lot of hills. So there's not, as far as Ward 4 goes, I think that our service delivery right now on our grading, on our plowing has been good. In a year, I don't get a pile of calls from people that are upset about a whole lot out there. We've got a really good group of people and an active and vocal group when it comes down to the water projects. I think that the biggest thing that we need in this election is we need to convey that message to the rest of council. And I think that the solution in this is not necessarily getting the Ward 4 water approved. It's going to be how do we find ways to develop sustainable water growth, development, and expansion in the county. How do we look at something like this as a Suffield project, a north of Redcliffe project, a Seven Persons project? This is a much greater conversation. Again, one where the ward system is probably causing more harm than good, and that's where I think that based on where we're at with our finances, based on where we're at with our administration, this is a very a can-do and a get-her-done administration, probably the most aggressive and most well-rounded team we've had in Cypress County since I've been involved, and before. And so I think that we're primed right now with the right approach and the right, and it might be something that we come in and it might be a $200 million project that we absolutely cannot do without the support of the federal and provincial governments. But we need to mobilize our councils, mobilize our teams to go out and actually fight for the access to that. And, right now, I think a a big part of it is we get the design done, we get the viability studies done, and then we sit and wait for funding to come in, and it never comes in, and there's a disconnect on, who's driving it. Well, if it's a project that's big enough, where it is a part of it's a pivotal part on our strategic development and our growth, it has to be one of the first dominoes to fall. That's what we hit every minister with when we're in Ottawa. That's what we hit every minister with when we're in Edmonton. And we do it until we get it. And that's what we push and fight for. But as a council, it's hard to have that exact same kind of support and drive and push as a council of 9 when it's only impacting one ward.
Robin Kurpjuweit, councillor, candidate for re-election, Ward 4 in Cypress County. Thank you for your visit.
Thank you, Brian.